Okay, are you curious about the water in New Hanover County? I'm going to get through this video. Are you curious about the water in New Hanover County? Well, today I went to the Sweeney water treatment plant, and if you don't want to watch this whole video, the net is, yes, it's safe to drink our water straight out of the tap. You do not need a filtration system. If you want a filtration system, go for it. You can do that. It won't hurt a thing. I personally drink the water out of the refrigerator, but then my coffee comes from the water in my sink. And then if I need to fill up my water bottle at work, I typically go to the water fountain. So the water. That could be what's wrong with me, but maybe not. All right. So anyway, I want to tell you about what I learned. So we produce about 44 million gallons of water a day at the Sweeney Water Treatment Plant. Now, New Hanover County in the summertime, excuse me, I'll tell you the summer. Summertime, we go through about 30 gallons. Think about it. We're also watering lawns and everything else. In the winter, it's about 18 million gallons. So it just depends on the time of year, how much we go through. We do get our water from the Cape Fear River. It comes from Bladen County, not from New Hanover County. I'm talking about Wilmington today in New Hanover County, but that's where the water comes from, is Bladen County. It is, the treatment plant is always looking ahead, expecting growth, because we do expect a lot of growth here in New Hanover County. So they are looking ahead just to stay in front of it as our population increases. So that's a good thing. It was in 2017 that the water was tested by NC State and discovered that it did have some Gen X or PFAS in it. And instead of letting the treatment plant know, they went straight to the press. So Star News did a story on it. I'm sure you can read it. But since then, they have put together a new treatment plant or a new part of the treatment plant that helps take care of that. And I'm going to kind of go through it. But here's another caveat. Everything I learned today, you have to understand is being filtered and perceived through my mind. And it is not scientific and it's not super technical because that's not necessarily my skill set when it comes to water. But I want to explain it like a layman person would explain it. And maybe it'll make more sense or make you feel more comfortable because there are some people that simply don't trust our water. And after I spoke to Greg today, after he did our tour, I certainly do. And if you want your own tour of the Sweeney Water Treatment Plant, you can have that scheduled. They do groups often, but you probably could just jump in with a group if you wanted. So you would just have to call and get that scheduled. But let's go back and talk about what I learned. Okay, here's something interesting. So Hurricane Florence was our last major hurricane, and in 2018, they we were about 1 week shy of possibly running out of water. Well, thankfully that didn't happen. We were running low on liquid oxygen and diesel fuel, but that's simply because Wilmington became an island during Hurricane Florence. So they prefer to have about 30-day supply rather than a week supply, but anyway, we made it and we were fine. Okay, so the state sets limits on what can go into the river. And what goes in the river can only be regulated by law. So you can imagine it all depends on what bureaucracy allows in there. And that's a whole other complicated because the EPA has lobbyists, these chemical companies have lobbyists, and they all are trying to get legislation passed for what is best. What's best for the people versus other people's pocketbooks, that's a whole other conversation. Right now, we're talking about where we are in New Hanover County and that we have safe drinking water. That I'm going back to. Okay, so anyway, the company that did put the Gen X in the water was part of DuPont, and it's called Chemours or Chemours. I'm going to spell it for you because I can't pronounce it. Chemours. There you go. So that's who was putting something into the water that therefore they discovered had some Gen X. And they didn't know it before then because apparently the technology was not there to test for it. So when they discovered it, they made sure it went away. Okay, let's move on. All right. Oh, that upgrade whenever that Gen X thing happened. Don't you like how technical I am? That was a 40 to $50 million upgrade. Expensive. All right. So that part of the treatment plant was started in 2020, completed in 2022. Um, and the plant beats regulations required by the EPA. They only care about 30 to 40 compounds, and Sweeney tests for over 100. So it's good stuff. All right. Fun fact, Piquet takes water from the Cape Fear River. We're in a drought right now, so kind of matters. Anyway, Bladen County, Kings Bluff is where our water comes from. All counties have a different system for their water. So Pender is going to be different from Brunswick, from New Hanover. All right. They do have about 300 to 500 people come a year to tour the Sweeney plant. So it could be you if you're curious. Um, the EPA labs, colleges, they continue to test the water, which is a great thing. He did tell us that bottled water is not regulated. So just keep that in mind when you buy your bottled water or you have the Culligan water. I already mentioned that. Okay, so this is one of the things that they talked about. Now, this is New Hanover County, kind of the history that the pump station was first put in 1881. And then in 1910, we got our first water treatment plant, and that was Clairton Water Works. And then in 1943, the Sweeney Water Treatment Plant was put in, and that was named I think his name was John H. Sweeney Sr. He was the chief engineer for the Clairton Water Works. In 1958, we got our first total capacity with 12 million gallons of water per day. In 1982, we're up to 15 million gallons a day. 1998, 25 million gallons a day. And then 2012, 35 million gallons a day. And then I told you, I think at the beginning, that we're up to 44 million gallons a day. Pretty impressive. All right, so next, the sludge, all right, the stuff that comes out of the water, that goes to Sampson County, and they take it and they have a filtration system that they use to get it out, and then they put their water back in their river. Don't ask me what that river is, I'm not positive, but those are my notes. Um, okay, there's different stages of filtration. I'm going to kind of use this brochure and my notes to explain it because I'm not an expert. I'm just trying my best to explain it to you. Okay, the first thing they do is ozone, and this is a powerful oxidant that removes iron, magnesium, and taste and odor-causing compounds from the water. So that's the first thing they do. And then there's a clarification process, and that removes the sediment from the water. And then a biofiltration that harnesses the power of nature. It puts helpful bacteria to work to break down organic compounds and particles. And then it goes to a GAC filtration. This is an advanced treatment process that absorbs PFAS along with many other potential contaminants. And then lastly, it goes through an ultraviolet disinfection, which sterilizes harmful microorganisms. So I'm going to go back to minutes. That's straight from their brochure. So the first stage is the filtering, which I told you about the ozone. And then it goes to there's a 14 filters and they're 5 feet deep and they wash the filters every 4 days. So every day they're being washed because I told you there's 14 of them. So we saw all of those. All right. So then they do test the water at every stage to see how the filtration is doing and what's in there, how much is in there, so they can just better keep our water as clean as possible. Um, so, okay, the carbon is part of the filtration process, and that is coconut based. It's essentially ground up coconuts. There's a fun fact. Take that with you today. All right. The filter gallery is downstairs, and the water comes out and goes through the blue pipes in this stage. They had green pipes too. You don't drink that. It's the blue pipes. And that plant runs around the clock. Filter number 11, it's the effluent, is what it looks like to me, analyzer. And they have subpanels that measure the different levels of the dirtiness of the water. And of course, all this is reported back to their computer system. And then UV is next, and that's the last part of the treatment process. Um, and I'm not going to rattle all that off. They have different reservoirs, one in Ninth and Dawson, 17th and Shipyard, and then Westbrook. Um, Sweeney's responsible for 6 elevated tanks. They turn the water over in the system. The water turns over every day because we don't want water that's stale and stagnant. All right, so that's kind of my net of my notes. I'm not sure how interesting this has been for you, but long story short, if you want to go take a tour of the Sweeney treatment plant, I'd recommend it. It's interesting. You'd probably pick up more than I did, but I left there feeling very confident about our tap water. Okay, hope y'all make it a great day. Let's see if I can wrap it up.